Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2024 Early Math Fall Forum. I see some folks are still joining us, so we'll give it a minute and then we'll begin. I love seeing all the hellos and highs in the chat. So we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Heather McClellan-Brandusa. The Early Math Project team is excited about today's keynote and breakout presentations. So this is our schedule for the evening. We will begin at 6:05, that's Pacific Standard Time, with a keynote presentation by Julie Nicholson, Ryan Carrata, and Stephanie Holliday. The keynote will be followed by an announcement about the Mathical Powers of 10 Readathon from Mike Shaughnessy, and followed by a brief break. So tonight there will be 5 breakout sessions to choose from beginning at 7:10. So please choose whichever session you want to attend the most. All the sessions will be recorded and can be watched later, so don't worry if it's hard to choose just one. And please note that the breakout sessions with, or the breakout session with Stuart J. Murphy and John Dweck will take place at a future event and not this evening. Information about our speakers and breakout sessions can be found on the event page, and you can find this under the Sessions tab. Now I'm going to pass it over to Naomi.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you. As Heather mentioned, all of today's presentations will be recorded. They will be available on the Zoom platform tomorrow. So if you're attending the event, as you all are, you'll receive a notification when they're available and how to access them. Please help us by completing the keynote and the end of the event surveys. We read all of the survey results and use what you tell us to plan our future events. Your feedback is very valuable to us. The end of the event survey must be completed by everyone who wants a certificate of participation for today's event. Once you complete that end of the event survey, you will see a link that will allow you to download your certificate. Copy and paste that link into your web browser and download the certificate. Make sure you save it for your records. I do want to acknowledge Hand to Mind for their generous support of our giveaways. 8 lucky people who answer the surveys today will receive a special thank you from Hand to Mind. In addition to the Hand to Mind giveaway prizes, 20 lucky winners will receive a copy of one of Stuart J. Murphy's books. Thanks, everyone, and I'm passing it over to Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Grant. I get to tell you about our networking opportunity. At the end of the night at 8 o'clock, you'll have the opportunity to join one of our conversation rooms. And you have on the screen are those you can choose from. One of those sessions in room 14, you'll be able to join Mike Shaughnessy, and he's going to answer questions and have more information about that Mathical Powers of 10 Readathon. It's a free, fun opportunity to do some mathematical reading with children. And now here's Olivia.
Thanks, Lisa. Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Damaris, and we would like to stay in touch with all of you to let you know about upcoming events and periodically share new free resources. If you are not already receiving a copy of the Early Math Project's newsletter and would like a monthly update, please let us know in the end of the event survey, and you'll start to receive semi-regular updates. Please also look for our virtual event swag in the event lobby. You'll find special promotions, puzzles, and STEM-related and play resources. Enjoy!
Hi, everyone. I'm Dana McVeigh. And during the summer symposium, we shared information about an exciting publishing partnership between Count Play Explore and Charlesbridge. Count Play Explore, which is led by the Early Care and Education Department of the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools and Charlesburg, will publish 16 new fiction books all about science, technology, engineering, arts, and math over the next several years. These stories are intended to represent California kids and families that are engaged in science and math and computer science and/or engineering as part of their everyday lives. So if you're a writer or an aspiring writer or someone with a great story idea and would like to submit a story manuscript for consideration, please visit the Charlesburg Steamworks webpage. The window for this submission is open until December 15th, 2024. Carolyn?
Thanks, Dana. I'm Carolyn Pfister. I just want to say how honored we are this evening to have Dr. Julie Nicholson, Ryan Kurata, and Stephanie Holliday join us for a keynote. They are going to focus on how educators can use guided play to plan, facilitate, and assess STEAM learning opportunities with all children. They will share research on guided play, explore its impact on children's learning, and provide real-life examples of STEAM activities in action. Please join me in welcoming Julie, Ryan, and Stephanie. The EMP team is going to disappear from the screen now, and we're going to welcome them on stage. Thank you so much.
Okay, we are so thrilled to be here. Thank you for introducing us, and thank you to all of you for being here. We are going to have this hour together to talk about guided play and its impact on young children, their learning and development. And we love, our approach is that the wisdom is here in the big room, that all of you have a lot to share. We can teach and learn together. So we welcome you sharing in the chat. All, what is it, 584 of you? We will keep our eye on that and bring in your ideas as we talk. We thought we would start with just brief introductions by sharing a story of our own play and a meaningful moment that connected in our childhood to math and STEAM. And Ryan, you're going to kick us off.
Thank you so much, Julie, and good evening, everyone. Excited to be here. I'm Ryan Kurata, and I'm the program coordinator for preschool through third grade at the Sonoma County Office of Education. And my role is focused on supporting professional learning and coaching support for our preschool through third educators and admin across Sonoma County. And a huge proponent of play-based STEAM learning for all. I was also one of the founding teachers at a project-based STEAM school where I taught TK, kindergarten, and first grade. So love the littles. The left photo here is me at 2 years old. I was a very curious child, very deep into observation, lots of wonderment about how the world worked and picking up things and trying to figure out how they work. And you could find me from a very young age investigating worms and ladybugs in the yard, counting the ants marching up flowers in my grandmother's garden. And oftentimes I would bring those critters into my parents' house, but that's another story. So this love of wonder manifests in who I am today. I love to tinker with materials and tools and really co-create learning opportunities with the teachers who I support. So again, glad to be here, and I'll pass it over to Stephanie.
There we go. Sorry. I am Stephanie Holliday, and I am a TK teacher in Bakersfield, California, in Bakersfield City School District. I'm currently teaching TK. I have taught TK through second. I previously worked at in our district office supporting the expansion of TK within our 40+ schools. And here I am as a kindergartner on the left, about the age of my students, just ready for life to come at me and take it all in. And then these two pictures are with a couple of my siblings. As the oldest of 7 children, I had the opportunity to lead my siblings on daily adventures, whether it was building a maze for our desert tortoises or setting up a fort in our backyard, or simply dressing up and playing house, as you see here. Now, in my TK classroom, I'm able to continue those daily adventures with 20 plus of the sweetest worker bees in our hive as we explore, engage, and dig in deep as we learn through play. And I find myself learning and growing with my students each day.
Love that. So I'm Julie Nicholson, and I'm going to start with my picture here. This is me in early elementary school, and I loved nature. I loved climbing trees. The higher, the better. And, it connects to whenever we find that children are playing to the greatest of their ability, they're playing and their skills are stretched as much as they can, there's usually risk involved. And that's why I chose this photo, because I think whether it's physical risk, psychological, social risk, intellectual risk, risk is so important for children, right? We get a sense of the world around us and our place in it. And I didn't know this at the time, that I was learning about physics, that I was learning about balance and about motion and problem solving and geometry and all sorts of really good things. But I was absolutely learning those habits of mind, thinking of myself as a problem solver, persisting, practicing over and over until mastery. And so risk is really important as a disposition. It still helps me today. I was a professor of practice at Mills College for 17 years until recently, and I led the Center for Play Research. I finished my MBA just last year, and now I work as a vice president for Children's Funding Project, and I write books, I train, I consult all over the world, and it's just such a treat to be here. So we're going to dive in soon to classrooms and looking at children. Well, we see some here, but before we really talk about play and the different kinds of play, we wanted to just mention what we've learned over decades of research in different disciplines about the kinds of how children learn best. And as I just briefly talk through this, I want you to think about how you create the opportunities for children to experience these opportunities and characteristics in their lives. So relationships and safety. We know that children need to feel safe to learn. That's just a no-brainer. But what we also know from the research is that the best way to do that is for children to have caring, consistent, and attuned. When we say attuned, it's that we help children have that sense of feeling felt. They feel seen and heard, and that they are taken seriously, they're listened to, their ideas matter. It really helps them to feel safe so that they can learn. Active movement, agency. So we know that from birth that children use their bodies to learn. With young children, we don't want to see learning be a passive experience where they're listening to adults, sharing information with them. We want to see them moving and talking, having rich interactions. So children talking with adults, adults eagerly interested, showing interest, asking questions of children, children talking to one another. We want to see children acting out like this as scientists. They have questions, they have ideas, they're observing, they're testing hypotheses, they're failing and learning from that. That when they're doing that kind of learning, what we're going to see is that children's learning is integrated, meaning that they are discovering and constructing knowledge in ways that is across domains, so cognitive, physical, social, emotional, across subject area. You're going to see that. The math, the science, the social studies, the literacy, and the dispositions, the persistence, the problem solving, the curiosity, the wonder, that kind of a thing. It's all integrated. Of course, children learn best, what we know, when we build from their questions and their natural curiosity and interest, because when things are familiar, when it's in their home language, when they see things from their families and their communities, it engages them more deeply. So we want the problems to be meaningful. And then process and iterative. This is so important. Children learn best when we give them a sense of time for them to learn ideas. They put it in their play, they organize their ideas and make sense of the world in their play. They have another idea, they put that in their play. They need time to tinker, to explore, to talk, to think. And when we think about teaching math concepts, counting, comparing, number, shape, and so on, children need to practice over and over. But we want them to have repeated experiences, different kinds of experiences, not decontextualized, individualized, quiet worksheets, but different kinds of experiences. So when they're learning pattern, they're using manipulatives, unifix cubes, and then they're learning different patterns with language, song and rhyme. Maybe they're practicing patterns with instruments. And then we might go outside and nature. And I used to do that all the time with my kindergartners and look for patterns in nature. So it's this iterative opportunity for them to learn in many ways and have a spiral kind of curriculum. Ryan, do you want to just tell us what we're seeing here? And maybe as you're talking us through these pictures, we invite any of you out there to just share what you see in the pictures or how you support children to engage in these ways that we know supports their optimal learning and development.
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to hear from you on what this looks like in your context. So what you're seeing here, these 4 photos are from an integrated STEAM challenge that I proposed to my own TK students by first reading the book Carrot and Pea. So there's that literacy entry point into investigations. So I offered my students some everyday classroom toys such as ramps, cars, blocks, anything that was in our classroom. And the prompt was to engineer a carrot and pea friendship roller coaster, of course, inspired by the book, in pairs or small groups. And so Julie talks about giving kids agency, right? So having children have the agency to choose the materials that would work best and negotiate, as challenging as that might be in small groups, to figure out how can they create their carrot and pea roller coaster through this collaborative process. And I remember as I was walking around, just hearing the language of collaboration, hearing kids say, let's do this, or how about this? What if we did this? Just the excitement in the room to problem solve and seeing kids motivate each other to continuously test out their ideas through multiple iterations. One surprising moment that I remember on the lower right-hand corner, that student is pointing to his drawing there. One of my precious dual language learners, newcomer from Mexico, who I knew was fluent in Spanish, which is such an asset and a gift. And he was trying out, English in small ways. And so he's very hesitant to speak and use that English. But as I watched him in this Carrot and Pea roller coaster investigation, he was determined to draw his little plan. You can see his little green circles there, which symbolize the peas, and the green balls that he found in the classroom to build his roller coaster. And I watched as he began to carefully, point to these green balls, which symbolizes peas, of course. And he was confidently counting in English from 1 to 7. And he did it again and again, that iterative, repeated process. And I just remember just the look of accomplishment and pride that he had, and knowing that he can count in English around something that was interesting and motivating to him. So just this experience around the STEAM challenge, quick examples of how young children learn best when they're given the agency and the space to freely create through their own play.
Love that.
Yeah, Stephanie, anything to add around, how you see children learning best in your context?
Well, I appreciated some of the comments that were in the chat, and I saw risk takers. I think that's so important that we give our students the opportunity to take risks, to sometimes fail, to problem solve together. I saw innovators, engaged and excited. And you also mentioned, but it was said confidence. I think that is such a key role that we play in early education, is allowing our children to build that confidence so that then they can take it outside of that classroom. So
Yeah.
Love that. And thanks for bringing in the chat, Stephanie. I love hearing that. So for time, people who know me know that I love to talk about the brain and the impact of stress and trauma on the brain so that we can learn how to build resilience in children and support their healing. I don't have time to talk about a lot today around that, but here's a couple things I do want to think about when we look at this. We know that the first 8 years of life are a critical time, that the neurons and the synaptic connectors between neurons are exploding. And that, as Bruce Perry, very famous clinician and researcher, talking about the impact of stress and trauma on brains, as well as and brain and body development, as well as resilience. He says, because the brain is growing so quickly in the early childhood years, that the experiences that children have, good or bad, literally become the neuroarchitecture of their brains. We are wiring their brains, and we want to wire them optimally. So to do that, we want to make sure that children have access to their full cortical assets. We want the cortex to be open. We want the limbic system to be open. And in order to do that, we need to reduce children's automatic, the lower brainstem, and their amygdala. We want to reduce the perception of threat, the perception of stress. And so if we put children in a developmentally uninformed environment where they can't move, they can't talk, they can't play, they don't see things that allow them to feel mastery and confidence, and it activates the nervous system, what happens is we're going to cut off or greatly reduce the access to the limbic system, which is so essential for them to develop that sense of relationship and attunement and connection to others, the connection to feelings. And the more stressed they are, Bruce Perry talks about how we could literally cut off access to the cortex. And look what the cortex is helping them do is to learn, to take perspectives, right? To think logically, to abstract reason, to be able to regulate their body. So everything we talk about today is not just good for children. It's their human right for us to allow them to learn in the way that their brains and bodies learn best, and where we can set down that neuroarchitecture in the most optimal way. Okay, so we are going to dive in very soon into talking and showing you these different, we think about play as a continuum of activities and experiences. And early childhood educators will plan throughout every day for children to have each of these experiences. And we will, define child self-directed play, guided play, and adult planned and directed. We will go through and talk about each one of those. But what I want to just bring to your attention is that the boxes are of different sizes. So for young children, we want their days to be primarily filled with the self-directed play and the guided play. There is a role for adult planned and directed play. And I do want to say, with math instruction, we know from math research that we need the self-directed guided, and we need to have that adult who is intentionally teaching them with a sequenced curriculum. So there is a role for adult planned and directed. But Stephanie, do you want to say anything about why that box is a little smaller?
I think sometimes we, in the role of teacher, we want to keep our hands on everything, and we feel like we need to be in here and there. But we know that children work and play and learn on their own and with each other. And so that adult planned and directed play really does need to be limited. By doing that, it gives the children more opportunities to plan, initiate, and direct play, and socialize and allow the teacher to kind of watch what's going on. And it's very important that we take a step back and allow students to have more and us to have less. Of course, to keep that curriculum and that scope and sequence moving along, but stepping back and allowing students to have their time and energy in their guided play.
It is hard. it's a learning edge I've noticed because I work with districts and county offices and teachers and administrators, you know, every week on exactly this. And it is a learning edge for a lot of teachers, not all, but a lot of teachers to learn to trust the child and to step back from needing to have everything planned in advance, right? So if it feels hard for you as we walk through these examples, know that that's okay. We want you to take some small steps. We want you to identify your strengths and identify a growth edge. And we're going to actually ask you at the very end of the hour to share what that is for you. Ryan, before we go in and show examples of this different type of play, do you want to just quickly tell us what we see in these pictures that represent the continuum of play here?
Absolutely, yeah. And it for sure is a balancing act and it for sure a growth edge. And when I was thinking about this slide and looking over like how is the play continuum showing up to my students, you can easily see that each of these areas can be easily grasped from the experience that you're providing your students. So with self-directed play, of course, the choice and agency to direct their play. I thought about my little student one time at recess. They chose to go over to our TK garden, pick up some sticks, and build homes for ants. No one told that child to do that, but it captivated their interest. But as I could see the student building their ant homes, I observed such deep mathematical thinking, figuring out how many sticks she needed to build her ant homes, thinking about how to arrange them equally spaced apart in the bed of dirt. Um, Also, that child was thinking about what was the best shape to make their ant home stable, right? You got to keep the ants safe. All these play choices were directed by the child. As we think about that example, that child building that ant home, connecting it to guided play, right? So as we think about that experience, I notice as a teacher that more and more groups of children began to become interested in ants and also building the ant homes over multiple weeks, right? And I was like, what is going on with these ants, right? I took this opportunity to build on their interest in ants because it was obviously captivating of the whole group. And looking at those preschool TK learning foundations for math and for science, and thinking about how can I incorporate their interest in ants with our foundations. So designing kind of like a project-based learning unit. So I read some books about ant colonies. I invited them to create a mural as what you see in that middle picture, and they're depicting, ants in their living systems. So getting down with them as they're painting and asking those open-ended questions that Julie talked about. How many ants did you paint? How do you know you painted 5 ants? How can we count the ants that you painted? What I love about guided play is that we get to enter the children's play and also be supportive of the learning goals that we know we want to support them with. And then as Stephanie talked about, yeah, that limited time that we do need to spend on adult play and directed play, yes, it's important, especially with mathematics. I noticed as they were painting their ants on their mural, many of the kids were attempting to write the numbers of ants that they painted, which I thought was super fascinating. So they're curious about how to write the numbers and all of that. So I planned an intentional small group activity during my math centers where they could pretend to be little ants, picking up their little sticks in the sand tray and writing their numbers. And they got a kick out of that, becoming little ants. So this is just a brief, quick glimpse into what the continuum can look like with the experience that we unpack with our kiddos. Julie, anything to add?
No, the only thing I was thinking is I think we might have some people who aren't from California. So when you say foundations, the translation to that would be standards.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So we're going to take a minute now. We're going to spend some time on self-directed play, and then we'll shift into guided play because that, like we said, those are the 2 places we really want to see young children spending the majority of their time. But because guided play builds from self-directed play, we're going to start here. So definitionally, we've got play. It's voluntary. Sometimes we call this free play, but it's voluntary. It's intrinsically motivated, just like you saw with the child that Ryan just shared. The child themselves they're in charge of what materials they use, the direction, how they use them, the flow of the play, and the goals associated with their play. But what I want to do before we go into the classrooms that Ryan and Stephanie are going to share examples of self-directed play, I want to just have both of you share with me and with everybody, what do you see as teachers doing during this time, before and during? What are they doing in terms of child self-directed play? What is their role? Ryan, do you want to start and just share a few ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought about the teacher's role in supporting children-directed play. I always like to think of teachers as little researchers alongside the children, joining children in their play, exploring with them the materials, the tools, the concepts. One quote that comes to mind from Loris Malaguzzi, and many of you know from the founder of the Reggio approach and model, he said that teachers are set designers for learning, as if they are putting on a theater, right? With them being the director and the kids really being the protagonists, the players, the authors of the play. So think about dramatic play. We may put together a space for them to create, but it's the children who are directing that learning in those play scenarios. So I think teachers and researchers are a big component as a role of a teacher with directed play.
That's great. What would you want to add, Stephanie?
Well, in the chat, I was seeing that teachers observe, support, plan, and provide. And sometimes when I might have admin or somebody come into my classroom when this self-directed play is going on, and I might just be sitting back and watching things that are going on. But so much comes from that. I'm able to see how students are taking what they're learning, like, in a small group and applying it to, their free play. Also, how children get along, how their communication, that academic language that they're building. So very much I see myself as a researcher that takes this time to really see where my children are, where they're going, and maybe even sometimes where I need to step back and do a little bit of, reflection on how I'm teaching.
Love that. And you can see the direct connection now to how you're observing, you're assessing, you're writing things down, noticing what they're interested in, and how that can beautifully then link into guided play, which we'll talk about. And can I just say that in everything you shared, and I'm certain this is in the chat, we're bearing witness to their brilliance. We're showing them that we're invested in them. We're so awed by them. We're so interested in them. And we're giving that attunement that really helps them feel safe, a sense of belonging, a sense of, mastery, a sense of like, look at me, I matter, right? That's really important. Okay.
Can I add something? I just saw this
Yeah.
come through, but Hilda said it connects to their life experiences, their families, their culture, and their communities. And I think that is something that I have really dug in deep to try and apply in my own classroom. But I think that's a great reminder for all of us as educators to honor what they bring with them.
And those funds of knowledge, that they can bring from their families and their communities and their interests. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. So mathematical minds at work. Is this you, Ryan? I think so.
Yeah, that's a good
Okay.
way. Yeah, for sure. And so have been working with a TK teacher who's been really thinking about his soft start when the TK kiddos arrive in the morning and how to be that set designer to support children's directed play. And I love what you said, Stephanie, how we really want to take a step back and observe and see what their interests and curiosities and strengths were, because this is what the teacher just did. So over a period of days, this teacher noticed that children were gravitating towards the block and constructive area during the morning soft start. And I love how this teacher created this rich opportunity to support mathematical ideas such as spatial awareness, measurement concepts such as taller and shorter than, and of course, the social emotional skills that come with the play. The teacher amplified these experiences in the children's play by putting up flexible planks of wood, chairs, cloth sheets, really just to see what kids will bring and imagine to this space. So I have some quotes here from the kids. It was exciting to see this group of kids propose this idea of creating a car fort, which I was very intrigued about. What is a car fort? And one child said, it has to be a long car fort for like 5 monster trucks. And you can see even in this quote here, it just shows the mathematical thinking happening as far as measurement goes and counting all through their natural directed play. And then the following slide, we have here really children engaging that collaborative problem solving, mathematical thinking here with building their car forward as they manipulate the space and materials. And one kid said, the trucks will speed down really fast. These are the 2 starting lines. And he was very direct too. One here and one here. So he had a vision, right? And I love these quotes because you can see, again, how mathematical concepts were the top and the forefront of children's play. They were grappling with measurement, the length of the starting lines, geometry and geometrical design. What shape should the fort be so it can be stable and to work for their cars and their monster trucks? The concepts of motion, right? Speeding down really fast and how to engineer their forts so their cars could have a fast speed. And I love when the kids said, they talked about the starting lines, one here and one here. That's one-to-one correspondence that we can assess through their play. And so just any of these skills can be intentionally guided by us as the teachers by observing, noticing, asking questions. And so I would love to invite you, as you think about this play scenario with this teacher, what other math skills do you see at play as they're building their car forward? What other things come up for you?
That's great. And can I add,
Yeah.
as you're thinking about that, I want you to think back to what I said, how children learn best. Do you see that here? Do you see safety? Do you see movement? Do you see agency? Do you see iteration and process? Do you see things that are familiar to children and so on? That's great. Well, we'll let folks have a minute to add to the chat. And we're going to go into the hive. That's what you call your classroom, right, Stephanie?
That is true. I am the beekeeper and they are the worker bees. And in this one, these are just things that are out and about for my classrooms. You see blocks, you see cups, you see some magnetiles, blocks, and it has been amazing to watch them build and then even build upon their learning as they go. In the left, you see these 2 boys who this was probably the top one was about week 3 of school, and all they did was line up and race their cars. Then if you look on the bottom, you see that they have now started to be the little engineers and really, really develop elaborate construction of these blocks where they are balancing, where they are have ramps. They even have enclosures. There was so much going on. They were weighing things on there. And it kind of made this teacher's heart so happy that I was able to show because I take lots of pictures for myself, but I also share them with my families. And the parents have been amazed at their progress and their abilities. And so that is so amazing because I think it's an honor to be a teacher in early education, but I think it's even more important for my parents to see this. Here we had cup stacking. I literally just put out cups that I had bought at, Target for a party and I had leftovers. And you could see some of the friends were taking all one color. Some of them were building one layer. Some were building up and up and up. This little boy with the teal, he was amazed that he was able to build it higher and higher. In another picture, he was able to get it almost as high as him. And then you also see a young lady, one of my students this year, who is just sitting in the middle of those blocks, who is just building a little safe place for herself. And so wherever they're at, they are the directors of that. I loved how my little friend James built a neighborhood and how my friend JD decided that those magnetiles today were a train, whereas the day before that, he had built a rocket ship. And so their imagination and their ability to problem solve, their self-confidence, their independence, the imagination, also learning at their own pace and at their own ability also has been very, very important for students in the Hive. So
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all that. That is beautiful. And we have to trust children. We have an image of them as strong and capable and being able to play in these powerful ways, that the learning goals that they're intrinsically motivated to explore are important, right? And that's part of that learning to let go when we see the wonder and what they're capable of, and we take their ideas seriously and document and notice, ask questions, and so on. They feel that, don't they?
They do. Can I add one more thing? I think the biggest thing for me that I have been able to incorporate in my classroom is wonder and notice. Those two things, if anything, take time to ask your students, what do you wonder? What do you notice? It stops them because things are going at such a fast pace in our lives, but also in the lives of little people, that it is really important to have them stop. What do you notice? What do you wonder? And you would be amazed at the things that, yes, somebody said it's a game changer. It is, and it can be employed in all different parts of content throughout the day. And that to me has been a game changer. So yeah. So sorry, moving on to this one. The aha learning is what I like to call it. These connections with the PTKLF or standards, as if you are not from California. But I quickly noted that there was math going on, language and literacy development, history and social science. And you say, how? Well, they're working on expanding their vocabulary in that. They're building friendships and they're following community rules. So everything that we do in this early childhood classroom is integrated and plays an important role.
Love that. I'm going to go quickly through here so we can get to guided play. I'm noticing the time. I just wanted to bring people's attention to this white paper from for the Lego commissioned by the Lego Foundation, and the co-authors talk about distinguish between surface learning and deeper learning. And surface learning they talk about is like memorizing key facts or principles, whereas deep learning is applying and understanding the knowledge through real world experiences and play for young children. And Dale Farron, some of you might know her. She's an early childhood education researcher, a professor emerita at Vanderbilt. She explains that in a lot of classrooms, she's observed classrooms over decades, that they teach basic academic skills that keep children at the surface level. And she says, I want us to remember that when kids are not being encouraged to think, to problem solve, to be curious, to trust themselves, to figure things out, all the stuff you're seeing us talk about, she said, those are the skills that are really important for them to have school and lifelong success. So we want to just encourage you to think about, are you supporting children to have deeper learning experiences? And not just the surface learning of memorizing certain tasks. Should we keep going, Ryan? I'm wondering if we should get to guided play. Okay. Okay, so briefly, I'm just going to bring us here because we talked about the self-directed is so critical, but guided play is also essential. We want the majority of children's days to be, filled with both of these. So from here, we're building from the child's question, their interest, their internally motivated play, but then you have the guidance of a supportive adult who is extending the scope of the child's learning. And I put this child development article here as one of many different kinds of different research and articles that are coming out about the importance of guided play. And from this article, I just wanted to bring your attention to 3 things, and then we're going to turn it back to Ryan and Stephanie to show you their classrooms or classrooms. I think in your case, Ryan, I don't know if it was your actual classroom or some from your county, but what the research on guided play is showing is that there should be at least three fundamental characteristics that are part of the guided play to really ensure that children's learning is optimal and that you're getting the full benefit of guided play. So the first is that the adult is observing, noticing what the child's interested in, but building from that with a clear understanding of the learning goal in mind. They have a clear learning goal. The second is that it's really important for children to have voice, choice, and agency. As much as you can build in that sense of a child-led element into the play, all the better. And the third, that we want to be flexible in building a repertoire of strategies from indirect all the way to direct roles that we can have in children's play. And there are so many roles in the CDE's powerful role of play in education. We talk about many of them, whether it's using open-ended questions, offering props, offering comments as you're noticing their themes from the outside to just kind of offer a provocation. There are many, many, but I don't want to go through anymore. I want to turn it over to you. Is this you, Stephanie?
Yes, it is.
So you'll talk about what this is. Yeah.
One thing that I saw in the comments that I want to really sing out is Irma said it's okay to make mistakes and that is so important. So and it's also important for us to show when we make mistakes and all of that. Anyway, so guided play in the hive. I'm going to just focus because of our time on the things on the left. So these 2 pictures were at the beginning of the year, and we were really working on our friendships and building that community and getting to know one another. So we were also working on patterns in AB patterns in math. So I decided, let's make friendship bracelets. So I worked with just a small group, actually just one at a time. And we talked about friendship. We talked about how I could be a friend, how they could be a friend, different things, what happens when we aren't being a friend. But as we did that, we were working to put together friendship bracelets with an AB pattern. And so they lined it up and then they got to thread it through. And that lower picture right there is almost all of my students at one point with our bracelets on, how important that was, that we were able to work through patterning, talk about friendships, and then also build a really strong community because, like they said, now we're all friends. And I absolutely love that because it took something that we were already talking about about friendships and the patterning, and they were finding patterns all over. And for them to make their own friendship bracelet and to proudly wear that now almost every day, it really built a community for our classroom. But I love how guided play can support individual needs in developing their critical skills while looking at a specific learning goal, but employing hands-on learning. And I like to call this play with purpose. So yeah.
I like that. And you can see when you were talking, whether it's the fine motor control of those little beads or the friendship skills or the patterning, this is a beautiful example of integrated learning. And this, across the different areas, the domains, the different subject areas, and the dispositions. Children are learning all of that, and they're safe and they're joyful and they're happy, and you were building from their natural interests.
It kind of speaks to that idea of the iceberg that Julie talked about, how the learning is beneath the surface. Yes, wonderful play and joyful play, but look how much they're learning. Friendship, social skills.
I think we should just keep going past 18. Skip on to you, Ryan.
All right.
Okay. Here
round
we
us
go.
all out. Yes. So as we rounded our night, we'll just talk about this experience that a TK teacher had in our county, exploring balance, a very familiar mathematical topic. She started with a book, Just a Little Bit, which is a humorous story about the concepts of weight and size. And so she invited children to explore balance with a balancing scale, again, which is very familiar to us as teachers. It comes in our math curriculum. So what could kids do with a balancing scale? But then as she iterated over time in their learning, in the next slide, she provides them a more open-ended prompt for them to actively explore and ask questions about, okay, how can I balance? What does this actually mean? And so looking back at those standards, the preschooling foundations here in California, looking at the goal of mental rotation, how children can learn through trial and error and determining how objects move and fit in different locations. And so using everyday materials, right? Pattern blocks, popsicle sticks, paintbrushes. They use their bodies, incorporated movement to playfully balance in really surprising ways. I got the chance to watch this teacher and these students in action. Kids were like, oh my goodness, if I put this paintbrush here on my arm, can I walk backwards and can it still balance? And so they have this humorous way of exploring. And you can tell just in the environment, they were supported to take risks and have these safe, nurturing relationships to explore the world around them. And then this teacher began to
It's
iterate.
expected. Can I just add that the vision is of children as scientists, that they hands-on, minds-on, they need to talk and move and explore and experiment and yeah. Stephanie,
Absolutely.
were you going to add something before I go to?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and this teacher, quite amazing to see the progression of this exploration of balance, diving deeper. So she read another book called Balance the Birds. It's actually one of my favorites. Designed an opportunity for children to investigate balance with an unstable table, which I've never heard about. It's a activity that was developed by the San Francisco Exploratorium. And it's basically cardboard panels, a tube with a ball on top, and kids can use any manipulatives to put on top of this panel that wobbles and topples and flips. And children have to explore, okay, how can I balance this unstable table? Connecting to the book, they drew and colored their own paper birds and hooked them onto the unstable table. Um, so again, this iterative cycle of taking risks, being flexible, and of course, this thing goes all over the place. So kids were learning how to persevere and say, oopsies, try again, right? And so how can we nurture this taking risk environment through their play? Again, the learning beneath the surface.
And they were probably able to talk, like enter one another's groups as they were different stable, unstable tables. They were working on it. They could offer comments, right? Have emotional reactions, kind of move throughout the classroom and be engaged as a community. And we want to see that. We want to move away from individualized, quiet, sitting still activities to the movement and rich interaction, children feeling that sense that I can offer something to your learning and you can offer to mine, and teachers bearing witness and assessing and observing and extending.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned language too. So this particular classroom, about 98% were dual language learners and newcomers, and kids were exploring balance and talking about how they were problem solving with their peers in Spanish. And they had the nurturing environment to begin to speak in English and try this out as they explored. In this last iteration, the teacher kept going further. And what I love about this example is that it shows how the play continuum that we talked about, we can move in and out of any of the stages of play, from guided play to adult directed play to back to self-directed. So we won't play the video, but I'll talk through it. As they were playing, exploring with their unstable table, the teacher noticed them actively using the language of heavier than and lighter than in very interesting ways. And so as they were exploring, she noticed one kiddo said, this side is heavier and this one is lighter, comparing the different sides of the unstable table. And of course, notice some misconceptions here that, oh, they were pointing to actually the lighter side is heavier and vice versa. So knowing this observation through their play, she took down some notes of, oh, maybe it'd be good to explore intentionally heavier and lighter in a small group learning opportunity. Or think about one-to-one correspondence because kids were curious about counting the objects on their unstable table. So how this guided play example and self-directed play can move into this more intentional adult-directed play to support the skill development in mathematics.
I wonder, we were having trouble with the sound, so you may not hear the sound, but I think I'll try the video just so they
Oh,
can see it.
let's do it, yeah.
Since you just talked through it, they know what's happening.
And what happened when you put the chickens on each side?
Right.
Yeah, that's when the girl said, this one's heavier and this one's light. And that was an interesting observation for the teacher to notice.
That's great. Well, we are coming up on our last few minutes. Oops, let me go past here. And I'm going to skip this one. All of these things connect to many different foundations, many different standards. But we want to close with this idea of starting with your own play. And Stephanie, you were going to tell us about something you did that was exciting.
I did. So a few weeks ago, I went to our county office to do to have a block party. And it was very interesting because I was pushed out of my comfort zone. I wanted to build symmetrical. I wanted to build perfect. And it was an opportunity for me to tinker and play and become comfortable with the blocks that I was introducing to my students. And so it was just a reminder to me that we have to give our students opportunities, because I was uncomfortable. My students might be uncomfortable. They're going to be learning and developing and make mistakes and become those little scientists and engineers. So, yeah.
And it starts with you. You're right. You having that same experience builds empathy, and
Yes,
it's
definitely.
so lovely. And Ryan, how about you? You took this picture, correct, of the teacher?
Yeah. So this was a part of our STEAM training that we're doing here at the county office. And this is a quote from the teacher who's in the training. She said, being able to tinker myself sparked a desire to see what my students can do with the concept of balance. So they explored unstable table as adult learners first before they facilitated. And I love how the teacher elaborated on how this experience to play, just as Stephanie talked about, it's liberating for us. It's experiencing joy, the frustration, the perseverance. We can better empathize with our students and think about how to equitably facilitate this joyful, playful learning for all learners.
So this hour went so fast. We want to have maybe an exit ticket. Can we request that of you, that in the chat you share one insight? Maybe we hope you all saw some strengths. You got that acknowledgement of there's lots of things you're already doing that are really great. Maybe you want to identify a strength. Maybe you saw a learning or a growth edge. You want to put something in the chat about something you want to try, an action you want to take, or just something that's top of heart, top of mind for you. But we want to thank you for being with us tonight. This was such a joy, such an honor, and really fun to be here. We know you have another set of presentations coming, so we hope you have a fantastic rest of your.
I do want to say, it sounds like a lot of people are going to be doing the unstable table, Ryan, and they're going to start purchasing the books. So that's a good. Just be joyful every day in your learning with your students. Allow them to experience, engage, explore, and enjoy.
Ryan, any closing?
Absolutely. It's so exciting that you guys want to do unstable table. Yes, I saw someone put the link in the chat to the Exploratorium. Maybe we can send that out some ways. But yes, be joyful, play yourself, get down and build blocks with your kiddos, ask those questions and lead with them. Lead with them. And thank you so much for tonight.
Thank you.
And remember to notice and wonder.
Yes.
Notice and wonder. Let's end there. I love that.
Thank you, Julie, Ryan, and Stephanie. That was great. Thank you everyone for joining us for our keynote. We are going into a 10-minute break, but before you go, we have a quick announcement about the Mathical Powers of 10 readathon from Mike. Mike, will you join us on the stage?
Thanks, Naomi. So I'll be in, I think, later in when we have these rooms from 8 o'clock on, in room 14, talk to everybody about the Mathical Books Readathon. I'll share a little bit about what the Mathical books are, and teachers can sign up their classrooms to read books from all the way till pretty much the middle of June, starting anytime, September 1st already even. So you guys can catch up and come join me and I'll tell you all about it.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks,
You can
Naomi.
join him. Thank you. You can join him in the networking opportunity after today's events. You'll be able to access that through the sessions tab through the lobby. So we're going into our 10-minute break. Well, 9 minutes now. We'll get started back up with our breakout sessions at 7:10. If you navigate back to the lobby and go to the sessions tab, you'll be able to look at which session you would like to attend for the breakout period. So see you all there. And again, thank you, Julie, Ryan, and Stephanie.
So
Thanks, everyone.